Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. Mac Brown, I see you. I see you. I see what you're doing. You're up to your old tricks. I love it. I'm rooting for you so hard as a all-time fan, everything you did for the University of Texas, and to see North Carolina turning it up in recruiting right now, 2021, right now currently third in the 24/7 Sports recruiting rankings, just behind Clemson and Ohio State, two teams that were in the college football playoff this last year. It's unbelievable to see what he's doing in his return to North Carolina. Unfinished business there as he left, building it up, what he did with Dre Bly, Julius Peppers, all those guys. He builds it up. He goes on to the University of Texas and has a storied career. And everything that he did, I understand, the end, and we'll talk about just that whole journey. But where he is now, as an older man, as somebody who took that time off and learned so much and refined some things. I think you're seeing that now play out in North Carolina. Year one, you look at it, hey, 7-6 in his first year, good, not great. But when you look deeper, you see the bowl win, the military bowl win when they went to DC and they destroyed, I believe it was Temple, and all their losses, they didn't get blown out. Even the Clemson game, 21-20, right there. I think it was a 2-point conversion situation. Like right there, all these games. Wake Forest, they lose by a score. All their games they lost by a score. And then they had the emotional games to start the season when they beat in Miami in that second game. They beat South Carolina in the opener, and it's like, wow, like there's a real momentum building here for the Tar Heels, led by Mack Brown. And why is that? What has he discovered when so many people doubted his return and were skeptical of Mack coming back? So the one thing that we do know in regards to Mack Brown is if he has a quarterback, he has a chance. You go back to when he first got here, he inherited Major Applewhite. Major Applewhite, and a lot of the John Malkovich players, obviously Ricky Williams has that Heisman Trophy winning season, and they parlay all that momentum into that historic recruiting class of Corey Redding and Chris Sims, and next year they get Roy Williams and B.J. Johnson and Sloan Thomas and, the whole Mike Williams and all these guys. And they just build it up to the point where Texas does become a juggernaut, ultimately Vince Young, and they win the national championship. And it goes on for a whole decade where they are one of the best teams, highest winning percentage in the 2000s, right? So what he built there, and then the burnout that happened because his staff kept getting picked off, and he had some errors in the quarterback recruiting down the road with the Andrew Lucks and the Robert Griffins and the Jameis Winstons, and some evaluations got a little lazy, and ultimately that tiredness and that burnout resulted in him leaving Texas. Now, never meant he was a bad football coach or even lost it per se, but I think that break, especially going into the media and having an opportunity to call games, learn from other coaches, find other minds, and then waiting for the perfect opportunity, the perfect situation for him to flourish when he made his return. And he's made his return to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, a place he knows very well, a conference he knows very well, and an area from a recruiting standpoint where he knows he can recruit like gangbusters right off the bat because he had done it before. Then he surrounded himself with the staff. He goes and gets a Dre Bly, a Phil Longo, with Dick Penn, and they're putting together, he even had Tim Brewster that first year, putting together the blueprint on how to attack Clemson specifically, because Clemson is dominating the ACC like nobody's business, right? It's kind of like Florida State in the 90s when Florida State was dominating the ACC and there was nobody there to really contest them, right? And especially taking advantage, Clemson has done a great job of taking advantage of the ACC, while Florida State has been down, while Miami has been down, while Virginia Tech has not been what they're typically were accustomed to being, especially during their time in the Big East. So Mack Brown, sensing that opportunity, understanding, having that common layout, and now going and getting a quarterback like Sam Howell, who had one of the all-time great true freshman seasons we've ever seen in college football history, 40 touchdowns accounted for. And why is that? Why the instant success with Sam Howell, and how that's led to the recruiting and you going out and getting a Tony Grimes to commit from Virginia Beach, who, you look at that area, and those are the type of recruit, because you look at how highly regarded Tony Grimes is, those are the type of people that turn into the Champ Baileys of the world down the road as prospects. You go and look at that Virginia area, that's the area that, the Michael Vicks and the Aaron Brooks and those type of athletes came from that Virginia Beach, Newport News, that type of area there. So him going over there and recruiting and getting a big win like that is remarkable in just his second year building up this program. And so one of the things that I believe Mack Brown has learned that he kind of let go at the end of his tenure at Texas is the identity of the offense. And you have to have a modern, high-octane offense if you want to be at a certain level. And you look at getting a true freshman in the Sam Howell, who to start the season was a competent passer and end the season was elite, right? And you have you're going to return two receivers there in Des Newsome and Diami Brown, who are both over 1,000 yards and both over 10 touchdowns receiving. And that doesn't even include the two running backs, Carter and Javonte, who both almost were at 1,000 yards rushing themselves. So when you look at the statistical production, and when you watch them on tape, they're fun. They are fun. And Phil Longo is a big part of this because he came from Ole Miss, where they had the A.J. Browns and the D.K. Metcalfs of the world, right? And they were tearing it up over there at Ole Miss. Now, they didn't have as much success as they should have because of some of the violations and things that crept in at Ole Miss. But the scheme is the scheme. And the thing that Mack Brown has gone and instilled is we're going to be aggressive. Coupled with Phil Longo, we're going to be aggressive and we're going to have fun, and it's going to play into recruiting. And we're going to be competing with some of the big boys now, right? Right off the bat, taking Clemson against the ropes. They're here to stay, right? And the thing too with Mack and that whole philosophy is when you watch them, look how many touchdown passes Sam Howell had that came from outside of the freaking red zone. You go watch this man's tape. They're throwing deep balls left and right. They're attacking people. They're getting athletes in space. This is stuff we're asking to see from Mike Yurcich and the Texas offense with our athletes. North Carolina's already there with their skill players. And they have some of the best firepower coming back now, all things considered. So now it allows you to go into recruits its own and say, hey, you come here, not only are you going to get an opportunity to play for a coach that has won a national championship and is a proven winner, but the statistical output, you're playing in a modern offense. You're playing an offense where you will be showcased and allowed to show off your gifts. So I am so encouraged by what I'm seeing in Chapel Hill and Coach Brown and what he's learned. Like I said, just being able to study and really auditing himself over that period of time. But the thing he hasn't lost, and this is why he's always been a great recruiter no matter at what point of his career he's been, is that genuine good nature of a father figure and somebody to connect with. Mack Brown, I think I said this before in a live chat. I think it was last live chat when I was talking about Tom Herman and where he needs to get to, of being okay with not always being the smartest person in the room, but making sure that I have that smartest person in the room guy on my staff or it's identified. And whether it's Longo that Mack Brown has, whether it's Mike Yurcich that Tom Herman now has, just making sure that person's there, because it's my job to have those relationships to build with the staff, to build in the community and recruiting, and most importantly, to connect with the kids to get them to respond and to play for me, period. That's what Mack Brown has always understood, but now he's rejuvenated, right? Now it's the modern day. It's Mack Brown 2.0 that we're seeing at North Carolina, and he is building something very, very dangerous. For those of you in the ACC, you better wake up, because that Coastal Division there's no reason why North Carolina can't make a run to compete against Miami or Virginia or Pitt right off the bat to go to compete against Clemson from the other side in the ACC championship game. There's no reason why they shouldn't be back there. And we've seen North Carolina have these spurts where they've had talent, even with my man Larry Fedora. You know, he had, you know, a little bit of success there. Butch Davis days. Like, they've had these runs, but what I'm seeing now, when you have a true freshman quarterback go 38-7 as a passer, year one, over 3,500 yards passing, you're doing something different over there. You're doing something different. And I think I'll end the video here. The perception of some of the older coaches, I think, will change, because just because I'm an older coach doesn't mean that I can't have modern offense or a modern defense and build a young staff, but I still now have that wisdom. We're seeing this happen with Herm Edwards at Arizona State in the Pac-12. Look what Arizona State is doing over there. Look how they're recruiting, because he can go in there with the credibility of what he's had in the past from the NFL and as a former NFL player and all that, but he connects as to the parents. He connects as a father, and he's respected by the kids. Mack Brown understands the 3 levels of recruiting. You got to connect with the player, you got to connect with the parents, and you got to connect with the high school coaches. If you're able to do that, or at least get 2 of the 3, you're in business. Mack Brown's always been good at all 3 levels of those the recruiting dynamic. Herm Edwards has gotten there clearly with what he's doing and how they're recruiting in California. So some of these older coaches, I think, if they get their staffs together to handle all the X and O stuff and to make sure the scheme is on point, you are in business. And we're seeing that at North Carolina. So shout out to Mack Brown. Salute to what he's doing over there and them boys on Tar Heels. You have a fan here in Austin that is rooting for your success. I always root for guys that have done right by us in this program. No different than a guy like a Shane Bouchot who's doing his thing over at SMU up in Dallas, right? There was nobody happier than me when I saw him on the cover of Dave Campbell Football. So those guys that have come here and served our University of Texas in Austin, and as we try to bounce back and modernize ourselves and transform ourselves to get back on top of the Big 12, I expect to see what our former friends are doing out there in the college football landscape. So I appreciate y'all. Y'all let me know what you think of what's going on in North Carolina, how you feel about Coach Brown, and show him some love in the comments. Please please share. I appreciate y'all. Trying to grow the platform as always. Horns always up.